Hi there, Michael here. Today we are going to check out Spanner 5, which is an immersive channel panning plugin from a New Zealand developer called the Cargo Cult. This is a developer that is very well respected in the Pro Tools community. Like most of their plugins, Spanner used to be only available for Pro Tools, which is the main reason it had not been on my radar so far. But with version 5, the Cargo Cult added VST3 and audio unit versions that integrate very well with pretty much any digital audio workstation out there. So I felt it makes sense to give it a try. And spoiler alert, the way the Cargo Cult have made sure that the plugin integrates well with other digital audio workstations is quite outstanding. Now, before we open up Spanner 5, a very important disclaimer: this is not a sponsored video. I actually paid full price for Spanner 5. So everything I'm going to say is completely my own opinion. And with that being said, let's check out Spanner 5. So I'm going to demonstrate Spanner in Reaper, and I'm going to work on a Mac, but everything that I'm going to show you works in Windows as well. And what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to take in some very basic audio. I'm actually only going to work with a preset in Dune, in the synthesizer Dune. And I'm going to just move that around in a 7.1.4 layout. And in order to do that, what I've done here is I have an instance of Dune, and I'm once again going to use one of those one-finger presets, and with a very, very simple MIDI clip. So it's probably the simplest session in Reaper that you can possibly generate. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to upmix that to 7.1.4 so that we have something that we can actually pan around. I'm going to use Sam Hawking's Eno plugin for that purpose. One of the best upmixers, unfortunately currently not available, but we will see. Maybe in the future there will be a second version. And then I'm going to use Virtuoso in order to bring that back into binaural so that you guys can hear something on YouTube. Now, before we do anything, let's have a brief listen what we have here. So let's just play the audio. And as you can see, it is converting the stereo signal from Dune into 7.1.4, and then it's moving that into the master bus. And in the master bus, I have Virtuoso, which folds that down into a binaural mix. Now, when you're working with multi-channel in Reaper, one thing that you always need to do is you need to make sure that the channel layout that you're working with is correct. And the reason this is important is because Reaper is channel layout agnostic. So it doesn't really care which channel is. It just takes in the order they come in number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, but it doesn't really care if the left-right channel, for example, is number 5 or number 7 or number 9 or whatever. So it is always really important to make sure that your plugins match the channel ordering. Now, this is actually one of the reasons why I like to work with Sam Hawking's Eno plugin, because it allows me to send a noise signal through each individual channel. So I can, for example, if I click on the button here, send a noise signal through the left channel. And if I now solo the left channel, I can check if that is actually coming in at the correct channel. Now, if I go through these channels, I will actually see that everything is working correctly. So if I, for example, take in this one, for example, this is the left rear surround channel. So it should be this one. I click on that and I see, yes, it is coming through at exactly the place it's supposed to come in. And I would normally go through each individual one to make sure that everything is matching the way it's supposed to match. Now, why I'm pointing that out is simply because we will actually see a little bit later with Spanner, we need to be a little bit creative because Spanner uses the channel layout slightly differently. So let's add Spanner to do some panning, and what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to add that after the Eno plugin. So let's add one here, and I'm going to search for Spanner. And here we have Spanner, the Cargo Cult. I'm using the VST3 version, and this is Spanner. And the layout is actually very, very nice and very easy to understand. So we have all the individual channels coming in. Now, the plugin is currently sitting on a 16-channel track, but we only have a 7.1.4 signal. So one of the nice things about using Spanner in Reaper is that you can actually force Spanner to accept a particular channel layout that differs from what Spanner actually expects. Because currently it sits on a 16-channel track, and that means that Spanner actually expects that we want to work with 9.1.6, but this is not really the case. We have a 7.1.4 signal here. So what we can do here is we can go here into the in settings and we can change that to 7.1.4. And we also want to have the output to be in 7.1.4, so we can also change the output to 7.1.4 as well. Now, this option is only available in Reaper, and that's actually really nice. So the Cargo Cult actually thought about how to implement that in a way that makes sense for everybody. And if you're working with another digital audio workstation where you usually don't really have the ability to mix and match channel layouts milly-nilly in any way, shape, or form you want, like you can do in Reaper, then you usually don't see that option. So if you're working with Cubase or Nuendo or Pro Tools, you're not going to see that option. That option is only available in Reaper, and I think that's a very well done implementation of how the Spanner plugin works within Reaper. So we now have the input set to 7.1.4, we have the output set to 7.1.4. So let's check how the channels reach Spanner, because we need to make sure that they reach them in the correct order. And fortunately in Spanner we simply see where the signal is coming in. So if I click here on the left channel, I see that it's reaching Spanner here on the left channel, which is exactly where it's supposed to be. The right channel, same thing. Center channel, same thing. LFE, same thing. Surround channel, oh, we are reaching the wrong one. So what is actually the side surround is going to reach the rear surround channel. So we need to take note of that. And as we go through the individual channels, we actually see that these rear surround channels and the side surround channels are swapped. So what is the side surround channel actually comes in as the rear surround channel, and what is the rear surround channel comes in as the side surround channel. And the same thing goes for the right ones, obviously. Now, fortunately, the height channels are correct. So front is correct and back is also correct. So before we do anything, we first need to make sure that we kind of reconfigure the channel layout so that Spanner is actually working correctly in Reaper. Now, it is important to note that this is not a bug in Spanner. This is just a consequence of how Reaper works. Reaper is completely channel layout agnostic, meaning that if the plugin sends out something to be the left-wide speaker, for example, in a 9.1.6 layout, Reaper just sees it as channel number 7 and not as the left-right channel. And that means that if they are coming in at weird or unexpected orderings, then Reaper will just take them in the way they come in. Now, this is a blessing as well as a problem. A blessing because it allows us to do all kinds of weird things with Reaper. Reaper doesn't care about the channel layout, so we can mix and match channel layouts in any way, shape, or form we like. But it is also a problem because we also need to make sure that the plugins we are using are getting the channels in the order the plugins expect them to come in. And in this particular case, this is not the case. Now, on a more technical note, the way at least I understand it is that if you put a VST3 plugin on a track in Pro Tools, for example, or Nuendo or Cubase, then the digital audio workstation will receive not only the number of the channel, but it will also receive information where the channel is. So the plugin will actually tell the digital audio workstation, this is channel number 5, and this is supposed to be the side surround channel, the left side surround channel. And then the digital audio workstation can reroute everything automatically. Now, because Reaper, once again, is channel layout agnostic, it just takes in the number and doesn't care about the information where the channel actually is. But fortunately, we can do that manually, so we can reconfigure everything manually. And the way to do that is by going here into the channel routing option of Spanner. So before we do anything, we actually need to correct the layout so that Spanner actually gets everything correctly. And for that, once again, I'm going to open up the channel layout and I'm going to make sure that the channels come in at the correct order. Now, I did some tests before, and what is happening here is that the side surround channels and the rear surround channels are swapped. Everything else is okay. So we just need to rearrange those, and those are channels 5, 6, 7, and 8. So track channel number 5 should come in at input number 7, 6 should come in at input number 8, and 7 should come in at input number 5, and 8 should come in at input number 6. And we need to do the same thing also for the output, because if you change the output back, then essentially Virtuoso is not going to see the channel in the correct order. So we're going to do the same thing here as well. And this, once again, we're seeing track channel number 5, 6, 7, and 8. And once we have done that, Spanner should actually get everything in the correct order. So let's test that again. Once again, we just had issues with the side surround and the rear surround. So let's see side surround. Yeah, it's now the side surround, right side surround, left rear, right rear. Everything is correct. And now also double check the Virtuoso plugin to make sure that also it is also sent out correctly for Virtuoso to kind of see it correctly. So once again, if we solo here the side surround, the left side surround, you now see it's also coming in correctly with Virtuoso. Now, it's also important to point out that if you're working in any other digital audio workstation, Cubase, Nuendo, Pro Tools, whatever, you should not have that problem. You're only going to have that problem in a digital audio workstation that is channel layout agnostic, and the only one really that is agnostic at that level at least is Reaper. So unless you're working with Reaper, you're not going to run, or you should not going to run into that problem. And if you do run into that problem, unfortunately other digital audio workstations usually don't allow you to reroute channels within a particular track. But what you can do is you can use a plugin that allows you to remap the channels. There are a couple of options out there, and I'm actually going to release a video about one such plugin, which is called Divert from Maximus Audio, in 2 or 3 weeks. I'm not quite sure yet when exactly I'm going to release that. But if you're interested in that, make sure that you're subscribed and click the notification bell so that you get notified when that video comes out. It's a very simple process, and it allows you to remap the channels in any other audio workstation. So if you ever run into that problem in Cubase, Nuendo, or in Pro Tools even, well, actually not in Pro Tools, but at least in Cubase or Nuendo, you can remap everything correctly and make sure that everything works. Now, this is usually only a problem in higher channel layouts. So unless you're working with 9.1.6, once again, you should never run into that issue. But it does happen in 9.1.6 also with Cubase and Nuendo, unfortunately. So let's play around with Spanner a little bit. And for that, I first need to unsolo that one channel here. And then let's open up Spanner. Now, what can you say about the panning plugin? It's actually really straightforward. So what you can do is you can grab each individual kind of speaker and you can move that around. So let me just reset that, and let's just play the audio. And I can move them around, and then I will essentially get them into different positions, and I also see where the output is. So this essentially gives me the amount of information that goes into the output. I also have additional sliders that I can use. So if I don't want to use the interface here, I can also do that with the sliders. And this is actually really, really straightforward to use. So a couple of different options also. I can choose how many or how much of that audio goes into LFE and other things as well. Now, one thing which is also nice is that this is not only a panning plugin, it's also an upmix, downmix plugin. So you can also upmix that into 9.1.6, for example, or you can downmix that into 5.1, and that works beautifully as well. Now, in addition to that, you also have the option to move things around, and for that you need to use certain key combinations. So I'm using the Alt, Option and Shift key, if I'm not completely mistaken here. I have a Windows keyboard, so I'm not quite sure. But if I click on that and I move the mouse, I can rotate, or if I let go of the Option key, I can kind of move that left, right, up, down, and it gives me a lot of options. So this is actually really nice. If I click on that and with the right click, essentially it goes up and down. Now the interface is a top-down interface, and that's okay. You know, kind of, I usually would like to have something that's a little bit more three-dimensional, but it is fine for what it is, and it works actually quite well. So this is a very, very, very good option if you need a panning plugin. One of the really nice features is that this also works as a panner in Cubase or Nuendo. So if you're working with Cubase and Nuendo, you usually have the option to use external panners instead of the kind of built-in channel panners, and this allows you to do that. So it also has the option. So not only did the Cargo Cult add the VST3 and audio unit capabilities to their plugin, they also made it such that it is actually usable within Reaper by giving you the option to force a particular channel layout, and also kind of to really use it the way it's supposed to be used in Cubase and Nuendo by giving you the option to use that as a channel panner instead of the built-in channel panner, which is very convenient. So what's my verdict? Well, when I first looked at Spanner about 1.5 years ago, I did not include it in my list of best immersive panner plugins for one simple reason. It was a Pro Tools only plugin, and a quite expensive one at that, and the vast majority of my viewers are not Pro Tools users, so this made it less attractive for my audience, and I skipped it. But I have to honestly say that with the release of Spanner 5, particularly with the added VST3 and audio unit versions, the plugin has now made it to the top of my list of recommended immersive panning plugins. And credit where credit is due, the Cargo Cult did put some serious thought into how the functionality of the plugin should be transitioned into DAWs outside of Pro Tools. Spanner 5 works very well as a channel panner in Cubase and Nuendo, and the way you can force a channel layout in Reaper is exceptionally well implemented. You just need to make sure that the channel order is consistent across your session. So overall, very well done, Cargo Cult. The plugin is still a tad on the expensive side, and the Cargo Cult also does not do any major sales. If they put their plugins on sale, it is usually only a few bucks off. Now, depending on how you look at that, this is either an advantage or a disadvantage, but regardless, Spanner is a more serious investment and you will need to decide if it is worth it. There are cheaper alternatives out there. Well, that's everything for today. If you have any questions or comments, drop them in the comment section below or join our free Discord server. The invite link is in the description. And don't forget to subscribe to stay updated on all things Dolby Atmos and immersive audio. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.